The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
Earnestly Speaking podcast coming to you Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve, November 27, 2024. Back with old friend of the podcast, been about a little over a year. You won't see him today though, but you can hear him in the background here because he had a request to do the show today that he'll do the podcast under one request that he not be shown on video for good reason though. Steve Bortstein. What was the reason why?
I'm having dental surgery done in the next couple of days, and first off, don't smoke. I guess that's lesson number one. That's part of the problem. Part number two is my mouth looks like right now, had Mike Tyson actually been able to land a punch at Jake Paul last week, that's kind of what my mouth looks like right now. So there's a little bit of a lisp going on. There's a little bit of a, I look like, I don't want to defame people, but gap-toothed hillbilly comes to mind for a split second. So I don't want to frighten your audience, and I don't want to give them any more reason to chuckle at the things I'll say tonight.
No, I get it. That's funny. By the way, worst timing also to do this on Thanksgiving weekend. Why Thanksgiving weekend?
First off, number one, you mentioned a moment ago. You said the words Thanksgiving Eve. That's not a thing. There is no.
I made it up. I
know because my wife and I actually had this exact discussion this morning, and I'm like, "There's no such thing as Thanksgiving Eve. It's Wednesday. That's all it is.
It's true.
It's just a Wednesday. We gave you Christmas Eve, right? We'll give you that one, and we'll give you New Year's Eve. But do we celebrate Valentine's Day Eve? Do we celebrate Arbor Day Eve? Do we celebrate Labor Day Eve? No, we don't do any of that crap. So you don't get Thanksgiving Eve. So no, it's just Wednesday. It's the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And why did this happen? Ironically, being Jewish, I bit into a bacon, lettuce, and tomato sandwich.
A BLT did this to you?
Yeah, and it just cracked. It cracked part of the bridge.
Ooh, yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. By the way, I am also Jewish by proxy, for the record.
So yeah, you understand. So my relationship with bacon just took a completely different turn right now.
Yeah, what we having in the morning. By the way, the wife has already requested having bacon in the morning for breakfast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's gonna happen. Yeah. So I suffice to say, I want to ask you what are your Thanksgiving plans then? But I'm scared to ask you.
Well, I can still eat food. I can still chew food. It's not like my entire mouth. It's just there's one spot that's a little sensitive right now. So it's just it'll be. I'm still gonna have the same usual Thanksgiving dinner. It's just I'm gonna have to chew a little more carefully than I normally do.
Are you? I want to ask you this. Are you big turkey guy on Thanksgiving?
I never understood the fascination of turkey. It's kind of a dry, it's kind of a dry poultry. I like chicken. I don't mind chicken, but I don't understand the fascination with turkey. I'm more of a roast beef guy. I guess I'm more of a ham guy, but I never really understood
baked ham, yes. Honey baked ham, I'm with you,
yeah. I never really understood the fascination with the turkey thing. Plus, like where I live, like we drive by this area where there's a big turkey farm, And I can't help but, like, you see them in May and June, and you drive by them, and you're like, yep, you're the one. You're the one. You're the one we're gonna kill.
No, man. My family's Caribbean descent, so we don't really like. Sometimes it's turkey, but oftentimes we don't necessarily dive into that. So it isn't. I think turkey's overrated.
I do too. I get it. I mean, I don't mind it. And it's funny. You know what? I actually do like it. Not on Thanksgiving Day. I like a turkey sandwich. Like, slice it up a little bit. Give me a turkey sandwich, a little bit of mayo, a little bit of mustard on a nice piece of rye bread. Then, or I like turkey soup when you boil it down. Then I'm kind of okay with it. But the idea of standing at a table and carving a turkey up and watching everyone salivate over it, and then 3 minutes later, everyone just goes their separate ways, eats their dinner, argues about whatever, and goes on home. I just don't understand the fascination of it.
Yeah, me either. It's overrated. Like I said, I'm not gonna if it's there, I'm not gonna be like, oh my god, I don't want to eat it. I'll eat the fucking thing.
Oh yeah. There.
But let's be clear, it is not like priority number 1 or number 5 of things I'm gonna eat on Thanksgiving Day. So
correct.
Let's just real clear about that. All right, so we got a lot to talk about on this other podcast today. A lot of things we gathered up for the show today. Let's start the NFL first. The big story today, actually, on Thanksgiving Eve. I'm sorry, I hate to say it again.
Wow.
Daniel Jones to Minnesota off waivers.
Can I just say, I say this knowing full well that you, sir, are a Giants fan. So I know I can say this to you, and I know that, good. Enjoy that. Enjoy that for a second, because I'm going to destroy your team for a minute and a half here.
They suck.
The arrogance, the absolute arrogance and the ignorance of the New York Giants to have made him the number 6 pick in the draft in 2019.
Yeah.
Knowing full well, and I'm a student of history. I believe that history matters. Okay, the Duke Blue Devils in their history have had two like mildly successful college quarterbacks before Daniel Jones came around.
Yeah,
and I want you to see if you know either of these names: Anthony Dilweg or Ben Bennett. Do either of those names mean anything to you at all?
Nothing, and nothing, and a bonus nothing for you, buddy.
So the arrogance of thinking that this quarterback, who by all rationale had a couple of good games against Temple. He had a good game against Northern Illinois, and he had one good year when he wasn't even the expected starting quarterback in 2016, but he took over after the original starting quarterback, who God only knows when Thomas Sirk, that was their original quarterback. He took over for Thomas Sirk in 2016. That this guy was going to be the face of the New York Giants franchise in 2019. Is not only arrogant, but it is ignorant on every level. Now, we know full well that the 2019 draft was not good for NFL quarterbacks. Outside of Kyler Murray and Dwayne Haskins, that was pretty much it. But the 2019 draft didn't have a great number of quarterbacks in it.
This is
and
true.
Haskins, that turned out to be a wonderful move.
And tragic,
and,
obviously.
And Kyler Murray, I still think, and we can get into the Cardinals thing here in a little bit, I still think he's a work in progress, but far, far, far ahead of where Daniel Jones is, has been, or ever will be. This is not so much a move for the Minnesota Vikings as much as it is just to maybe save some face and have a backup in case, God forbid, Minnesota loses their starting quarterback at some point during the season.
Yeah,
Daniel Jones was a disaster from day one.
Oh yeah, no doubt. I've been saying it from day one. I was discussing I feel like I may have came on your radio show one time too, also back then when it happened, because I remember saying that my problem wasn't that they picked him. The problem was that they picked him so fucking high.
Right.
He would have been there in the first round or in the second round. No one was clamoring for Daniel Jones. I'm sorry, nobody was doing that.
And I think there's this idea that because the school has a particular resume, that everything that comes out of that school is going to be great. There was the time when everyone thought that Alabama quarterbacks were going to be great because Alabama was great. No, it had nothing to do with their quarterback.
Does not translate.
It had nothing to do with their quarterbacks. It had everything to do with the fact that their offensive line, their defensive line, and their linebackers and safeties and receivers were all really good. You could have had me throwing a football to half those guys, and it would have been just fine. But Duke doesn't have a quarterback history. They just don't. I mean, I can say the same thing about the University of Southern California. They've had some good quarterbacks, but the last few that have come out of USC have been terrible. You know, there's no Carson Palmers, there's no Matt Leinarts, and hell, even Matt Leinart was average at best in the NFL.
Yeah.
So I think there was this idea that somehow or another that the Giants, I mean, I know they were worried about Eli Manning eventually retiring. They needed to fill that gap. Daniel Jones was never going to be the guy who was supposed to replace Eli Manning. And if that was their thought process, they were badly mistaken.
No doubt about that. And again, it was more the spot. And for the record, the regime that's in place right now isn't the regime that drafted him, for the record. It was David Gettleman, right, by virtue of the advice of Eli and Peyton Manning and David Cutcliffe, what his name is. Some other quarterback guru, what do call it. Was a mistake. It was a mistake. I mean, looking at Daniel Jones and his talent, like, you saw the talent, the raw talent. Like, he was mobile, he had a decent arm, the whole nine, but he just couldn't put it all together. Even when 2 years ago, when they went to the playoffs and Daniel Jones had a good year, I said in real time back then that it's kind of smoke and mirrors, though. Part of the reason why I say Brian Daboll was coach of the year that year and deserved it was because of the fact that he had Daniel Jones on a leash, you know. Mm-hmm. But them going to the playoffs, winning a playoff game in Minnesota, I think gave them a little bit of a, well, we got to time up. And look, even when they signed them, what I defended at the time too also was I defended the structure of the contract. I did not want them to give him a extension. But I understood why they did it, and the structure of the contract I understood. It was 4 years, 160, right? But it was really 2 years and 80, which obviously is played out to be the case now. So I always defend the structure of the contract, you know. But and I knew the mindset was, well, here's the deal: the market's moving in a fast direction. That, you know, if you don't time up right now, he has another great year on the franchise tag. Then now that $40 million will turn to $50 million, and even $6 million going forward. So I understand the logic of tying him up, but not at the expense of risking, you know, Saquon Barkley, losing him. And look, I get the logic of the running backs. It's a position where it's almost wasteful to spend money on that position because of the injury risk. But Saquon Barkley is not Joe Mixon. Okay, Saquon Barkley is special. You find a way to make that whole. I don't care. And they screwed themselves double whammy. They don't, not only is Saquon gone, Daniel Jones, I mean, is also gone now on top of that. So the Giants front office, I mean, look, it's a shit show. I don't know if Joe Shane and Brian Daboll will survive. I think now, for the record, obviously things have been disastrous for the Giants. I still think they should be back here. I think the coach should still be in place next year. I still think the GM should be here in place because I think at the very least, Joe Shane, outside of the Daniel Jones debacle, which, by the way, I've heard rumors already that wasn't even their call on that on extending Daniel Jones. It was actually ownership. So that's a John Mara problem, really. If you're going to really get into the weeds on this one, but I think Joe Shane and Joe Shane and Ryan Daboll should at least have the opportunity to pick their own quarterback first before they find a way to decide to fire them. In my opinion, anyway.
No, I agree with that, but I mean a guy with a career record of 24 wins, 44 losses, and a tie, and a 1-1 record of the postseason, who's had 50 more fumbles in 6 years than I've had in 6 years, and 208 sacks for more than 1,300 yards. I mean, look, if you want inefficiency and 6 unproductive years, yeah, I'm happy to give you that, and I won't charge you $180 million to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm with you.
Yeah, I didn't understand the fascination with Daniel Jones from day one, and to this day, I still don't quite understand why any team would invest anything into him other than just as God help us, this is our last case scenario.
Well, here's the thing. I did this actually on this podcast about 2 episodes back on Sunday, where I broke down situations in the NFL right now, currently, possibly into next year, that of the 32 teams, how many teams don't have very fluid quarterback situations right now, and it's a lot more than you give credit for. And because obviously you have to wait for the end of the season to see which teams fall in draft order, of course, and obviously who'll be in line to drafts Shore Sanders or Cam Ward in Miami. And beyond that, there's not a lot of quarterback options really. There's no free agents I see coming down the pike. Maybe Sam Darnold might be the biggest name, I think, honestly, because of obviously he's doing Minnesota this year. Daniel Jones will have an opportunity still to get a starting job somewhere else because there's too many opportunities out there, and he's already an experienced quarterback, and I think he's done enough to at least warrant some interest from teams to at least compete for jobs.
Yeah, good luck. Well, God bless him. I mean, that's the best. That's the best I can say. God bless him for that. I wouldn't give this guy an opportunity to run the drive-through, much less run an NFL team these days. But that's just me.
Well, speaking of quarterbacks and staying in the city of New York, the disaster continues with the Jets, Aaron Rodgers, and oh my God, I will argue the Jets situation is worse than the Giants just because of the expectations.
And again, I will ask this question:
Go ahead.
How much longer do the Jets just feel like they just have nothing better to do but be held hostage by this guy? Like, just get rid of him already. I know it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. I know he structured his contract in such a way that he's got all the advantages here. But this is a disaster. And how you didn't know this was a disaster when he tore his Achilles, and forgive me for a moment, let me put this out there. Wasn't it at all like set in stone when he got the injury on the first game of the football season last year, right? Because what was the date?
9/11, wasn't it?
It was September 11th.
Yeah.
It was the same date as 9/11. It was 23 years ago, 22 years after that incident, and he was a Jet. Like, he's the curse of 9/11 that came back to New York 22 years after the original 9/11, right? Of all the curses to happen, Aaron Rodgers was never going to come back the same quarterback. You don't tear your Achilles and then, I'm going to be fine a year later. And then, by the way, while I'm sitting there on my Achilles rehab, let me go on every podcast and tell everyone about how much vaccines don't work. And suddenly I'm a political and medical expert on things that no one cares about. And I'm going to go on the Pat McAfee show, and we'll get to that in a minute.
I know you will.
And I'm going to spout off all this nonsense for a year because I've got nothing better to do but just, prop my leg up on a bench for 9 months while I watch my team flounder around in obscurity for an entire season. I mean, look, I get it. He was a great quarterback at one point in time. He is nowhere near that quarterback anymore.
He's not even good
the
anymore.
idea that the Jets were going to be somehow better with him has been just an absolute train wreck from day one.
This is the worst part too. Also, like, it was one thing where 5 years ago, where he's a pain in the ass, but he's worth it because he's just that damn good, and it was worth it. Now it's like, okay, he's not even good anymore. On top of everything else, now, right? He can't move anymore. On top, he's not even mobile anymore.
He's like watching a crippled old man at an old age home try to get around and throw a football. That you're not signing him to a contract.
He aged really fast this year. Obviously, that injury obviously played a large part in that. But he was on McAfee yesterday.
Before we get to the McAfee thing, who was a bigger disaster post their Green Bay career? Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers?
Oh, easily Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Favre had an MVP type year the year after going to first off, the Jets actually won a couple of games. They were in the playoff hunt. Favre obviously tailed off late in the year, but at least that team was competitive,
right?
With New York, even if you take away the Minnesota year after. It's still Favre.
Right.
Which is crazy because I'm a bigger fan of Rodgers than Favre. I think Rodgers
exactly,
is better than Favre. But
history tells us that Brett Favre was a douchebag, right? History tells us that Brett Favre was bad for Green Bay, and he was bad in New York, and he was bad in Minnesota. He was just a bad guy, right? Now you have the stuff that's happened in his last couple of years. So Brett Favre has kind of a bad name. Aaron Rodgers makes Brett Favre look like Johnny Unitas, for crying out loud.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God. Anyway, so yesterday Brett Favre was on Pat McAfee doing his usual weekly on there, and because there's been some rumors now about his future, about whether or not the Jets might release him, or the Jets don't want him back, or cut him in the year. Who knows? It could be week to week. So he addressed one of those rumors yesterday on Pat McAfee here.
There's a lot of things out of my control when it comes to that. But I've really enjoyed my time in New York. I mean, obviously we haven't had the success that we've all wanted to have, but I've made some great friendships on the team. I've enjoyed living in Jersey. I've enjoyed time in the city. I've enjoyed getting to know the fans. And I came here to win here. So I'm not jumping off ship, like, oh, I definitely want to play and not in New York. Like, I don't even know if I want to play yet, but New York would be my first option. There's a lot of things out of my.
Your thoughts on he says that if he retirement's on the table, number one, and if he does come back, the Jets are still the one option. Your thoughts on that?
Well, see, okay, so if I'm the Jets, all I hear is I don't know if I want to come back. Well, then if I'm the Jets organization and I'm the guy who writes the checks for that organization, I'm the one who's recommending, well, we have the cards on our side of the table. We hold the cards. We're not going to re-sign you. We don't want you back.
Do they?
If you don't,
Do they though? Is he on the contract next year?
Well, he's under contract, but if he doesn't want to come back and he doesn't have a firm commitment, then say that to him. Hey, you don't have a commitment. We have a commitment to try to replace you. We have a commitment to try and move on from you. We have a commitment to an organization and a fan base and ticket holders who want to see a winning product on the field rather than you standing there holding us hostage for another year. So that decision needs to be made in the front office. And if that means they have to take a cap hit for a year, then by all means, take a cap hit and just get rid of the cancer that is hanging over your organization.
I think he's back next year. I don't know why. I just think he's back next year.
Oh, I think he'll be back next year too, because the Jets have no spine and they won't stand up and they won't do the right thing. Look, I said the same thing. This is unrelated to Aaron Rodgers. There was a moment right before the World Series, and we'll get to the Dodgers in a minute. There was a moment before the World Series when Clayton Kershaw told Fox Television or Fox Sports or someone on MLB Network, hey, I'm really looking forward to coming back and playing next year for the Dodgers, blah, blah, blah. Wait a second. Clayton Kershaw, you don't get to make that call. We do as an organization. You have been an injury risk with your back and your knees and your foot and your hand, your arm. You've been an injury risk for the better part of 3 seasons. I still remember Clayton Kershaw sitting in the dugout after the Dodgers got their ass kicked in the first inning of the divisional series in 2023 because he was dead tired and he couldn't throw a fastball over the plate anymore. It's not your call. Now, for Aaron Rodgers, he's got some financial ties, and the Jets have financial ties. But it's time for ownership and businessmen to make business decisions that are in the best interest of their organization. And maybe that means cutting ties with someone who isn't doing your organization any good anymore.
Yeah, very true. I mean, is he under contract next year? No.
Kershaw?
Kershaw's got a 1 year.
Kersshaw's got a 1 year deal.
Yeah, so he's technically a free agent next year. Right now, should I say?
Right, and but he doesn't get to make that call, and that's for the thing that I wish ownership of organizations took a greater stand on this. Like, and we'll get into one other really quick. Like when LeBron James's kid says, I'm not going to be drafted by the Lakers, I'm not going to play in the NBA. At that exact moment, the Lakers organization should have been like, well, see ya. Have fun in Australia. Instead, you drafted this guy.
Because you know why, though? Because
of course you know why. But I mean, when did ownership decide that it was okay to be held hostage by an athlete? When did that become a thing?
I'm with you, brother. I was a guy that initially 10 years ago was like, okay, player empowerment, yeah, go ahead, boom, boom, boom. It has done more bad than good for sports overall, especially for fans now. I agree, 100%. One last thing in the NFL. I know you wanted to mention this also too. So I'm very intrigued by the NFC West race, and I know you mentioned the Cardinals in the notes you wanted to discuss here.
Oh.
The NFC West race is nuts, isn't it? The Cardinals had a chance to be that team. They beat Seattle this week. Now they're 7-4 and they're pulling away.
Right.
Instead, they lose in embarrassing fashion, lose by 10, 16-6 against Seattle. Now we got like all 4 teams all within 1 game of each other. Niners are fading, but still game behind. The Rams are, obviously are up and down. Seattle's kind of weird too also. Your thoughts on the West?
My thoughts on the West are that I said a few weeks ago, like 4 weeks ago, that Arizona wasn't there yet, but they were a year away. But then they kept winning, and I thought, well, maybe they are there. Okay, Then they go out and laid a bad egg on Sunday against Seattle. That was bad. Kyler Murray doesn't have any clock management. The coaching staff didn't know what they were doing the last 2 minutes of the game. They were still a year away. They are a couple of pieces away from being that team in the NFC that can run the table, and they are that close. Marvin Harrison is a work of art, and what he can do. Yeah. What he can do with that offense and the way he can take, you get one other receiver, you get another running back out there. I don't care who they are, but you get a little bit more offensive support, shore up that defensive line a little bit. And that is going to be a team next year to reckon with. I don't know if anyone's good enough right now in the NFC to beat Detroit, but I want to see how Detroit handles when they finally do lose another game, because that's going to be when reality will hit them and square in the face. Because if it's not Detroit, then it's Philadelphia. I mean, it's down to those two, isn't it, in the NFC right now?
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking right now, top tier of the NFC is those two teams. I mean, some people want to say Green Bay is kind of in the mix, but I'm still on the fence on the Green Bay right now. As much as the Niners are done, I guess, but I mean, the Niners, if they get healthy, maybe they can make a last gasp run. Who knows?
How much does it hurt every week to watch Saquon Barkley?
You're really gonna do that right now? You're really gonna do that right now? Are you trying to? I am on the air right now.
I am. No, I am.
I'm bothered by it now because again, I'm not trying to play soothsayer here, but this is why I'm pissed off by the whole situation with Barkley and the Giants. Because I knew if the Giants did not resign him, I told everyone he's going to Philadelphia. Even before it happened, I said this. He's going to Philadelphia. Because that makes sense. He's from the area. He's from down there. Okay. Right. And that was a need. And the Eagles have shown under this regime that they are very aggressive with transactions, which I admire for the record. And damn well your biggest rival lets the best player, arguably a top 10 player in the league, available like that. So that's why I was pissed off, because again, it was just $2 million. Oh, yeah. I don't give a shit. Make it happen.
And I think if that's your biggest rival team, if that's your division rival, it hurts a million times worse, right? Like when your division rival gets one of your former guys, and then that guy suddenly turns out to be one of the candidates for MVP. I don't care what sport it is. It hurts. It hurts like hell. I get it.
Damn right. Steve, ain't just any rival. It's the rival. I hate that team more than any team in sports. I can't stand the Eagles. Any team in sports, I hate the Eagles.
I get it. I understand it. As being a lifelong Dodger fan, trust me. Whenever I hear the word Padres or Giants, I mean, it's just a case of who you hate more that given week.
Right. Speaking of Dodgers, so World Series. I mean, you shouldn't be surprised. World Series champs, right? Come on, we all knew this last year when they signed Ohtani and all these guys. We just knew that it was the greatest team ever assembled in baseball history. Come on now. You're not surprised with this. Come on.
But what was surprising about it was that when you go into the season with the pitching rotation that included Glasnow, Buehler, May, and you had that rotation, and then you end up with what we ended up with as a rotation, which was essentially a bag of dirt and three guys held together with baling wire. That was the surprise of it. And considering all the injuries that team had gone throughout the course of the season, Mookie missed a month. Freddie had the ankle. You had Muncy, who missed a month and a half. You had Buehler, who missed most of the season. Glasnow, who apparently this is, again, going back and how do you not recognize this? Glasnow, who in all of his other years in Tampa Bay had never thrown more than 170 innings in his entire career, and suddenly in July he's got 150 innings, and you're surprised that he comes up ouchie in August. Like, no, you should have done your homework on this. That's why you don't have that guy throwing 7-8 innings at a time. It's why I also firmly believe I don't know if this conversation has taken place. I don't know if this conversation is going to take place. someone needs to ask Shohei Ohtani, do you want to pitch next year? Because if you don't, and you'd rather just be that guy who's going to hit 50 and steal 50, we'd be fine with that. We'll go out and get Blake Snell, ironically, who they just got.
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
Or we're going to go out, or we're going to go out and try and get Corbin Burns, or we're going to go and try and get XYZ other pitcher. Or maybe you want to be a middle relief guy. Maybe you want to come in once a week and throw an inning or two. But if you don't want to pitch and you just want to be that 50-50 guy, we'd be happy with that. Someone is having that conversation with him right now, because otherwise you don't need Blake Snell. You don't need a 2-time Cy Young Award winner.
But does that also defeat the purpose of paying that kind of money, though? You pay, granted, it's deferred right now, but you're still going to pay at some point. The whole purpose of him making that kind of money is because of what he can do on both ends of the diamond.
Or
right?
is it? Is it? I mean, let's be honest.
I don't think Ohtani's worth that kind of money if he's not pitching as well.
But the Friedmans, you got to remember this. The Friedmans aren't going to pay that in 10 years, because the Friedman family, they're going to sell the Dodgers in 10 years.
I'm sure, but I'm not saying logically speaking. Like, I don't think there's a player in baseball at all. Maybe Ohtani is special because that's because of what he can do on the diamond, on both sides of the diamond, but also marketability as well too outside of the United States. So that I get. That I get. But he's a special case.
He is a special case. He is a special case, and he's worth billions of dollars right now, especially to Major League Baseball, who saw a 71% increase in television ratings. They saw a marketing increase in terms of jersey sales, in terms of ticket sales, in terms of advertising revenue. Look, what he does outside of baseball, as far as the marketing of baseball is concerned, I have no problem with the Friedman family giving him $100 million. Is he worth it? Maybe. I don't know. Look, let's be honest. No athlete is really worth any of that kind of exorbitant money, but they're not going to be paying him that in 10 years. Some other guy who's going to buy this team in 10 years is going to pay him the remainder of that money. So
I would say if Michael Jordan played in this era, especially, so he'd be worth that kind of money because of what he could make.
But would you have asked Michael Jordan, in addition to playing basketball, would you have asked Michael Jordan to also go out and park cars?
No, of course not.
Of course not. So if Shohei Ohtani can only win 15, 16 games as a starting pitcher, that's the most he ever won as a starter with the Angels. Now, granted, they're the Angels and they're terrible. But if he's only going to give you 15 wins, that's why you got Blake Snell. Now he gives you 15 wins.
That's still pretty good, though.
By Tyler Glass now, because he'll give you 15 wins.
But who's winning 20 games consistently anyway in this day and age anyway?
Right, exactly. So that's why you've got Yamamoto. That's why you've got Glass now. That's why you've got No. So if you don't need him for that, but you need him to run that lineup, the top of that lineup, which is one of the most devastating tops of the lineups in the history of the last quarter century in baseball. Ohtani, Betts, Freeman. Now you go out, maybe you go out and get Willie Adames from Milwaukee. Maybe you go out and get him. Maybe you go out and possibly make a trade for Nolan Arenado. Maybe you go out and get maybe you go out and get, there's other names that are out there. But if you get those four, you get those top three in that lineup, and you don't have to worry about Shohei Ohtani throwing out that arm on a pitch, what's the point? Why not just leave him where he is? Let him throw an inning or two. Here, Shohei, go. We're up 8-1 over some hapless National League East team right now. Here, go out and throw an inning or two. Have a nice night.
Is there any value in him maybe doing relief or even a closer or no?
The way the rules are going to be written next year, they're changing the rules about what's called a quality start, and the MLB it never ceases to amaze me in terms of what they're trying to do as far as pitching is concerned. What they are trying to do is essentially what the Dodgers did in the playoffs, which is bullpen games. You've got bullpen games. You've got guys. You got games where they're going to have 5 or 6 different pitchers. You've got to go X amount of innings. You got to go X amount of batters. You got to do this. You got look what the Dodgers just did. They perfected it.
Yeah.
They they gave up a game in the World Series. They gave up a game in the National League Championship Series to the Mets. But that's because the B part of that bullpen was god-awful. The A part of that bullpen, which included Trinan, which included Kopech, which included Trinan and Kopech and Landon Knack. The unsung hero of the World Series was Landon Knack. Because in the bullpen game that they lost to the Yankees, Game 4, the bullpen game, they had 6 different pitchers. But Landon Knack went 4 of them. Landon Knack threw 4 innings, and he was the sacrificial lamb. Because if he doesn't go out there and throw 4 innings, they have to go to the A part of their bullpen. They lose Game 4. They probably lose Game 5. Then you got to go back to LA Game 6 with the Yankees having all the momentum. Landon Knack was the unsung hero of that World Series victory for the Dodgers.
Yeah. That, and by the way, being a Met fan, we played you guys in the NLCS. Like, it's pretty bad when like the back end of your lineup scares me more than the front end. Like the Max Muncies and the Fernandez, Kiki Fernandez, and the all those guys on the back end, Will Smith. Those guys scare me more than Ohtani and
Tommy Edman killed you guys.
Oh God, yeah. The
Tommy Edman, those are the guys we have to re-sign. Not only do you now have Snell, you need to re-sign Teoscar Hernandez, and you need to re-sign Tommy Edman. You do those 2 things, no one beats us next year. Nobody. I don't want anywhere near Juan Soto. I don't want anywhere near him. I want him as far away from the Dodgers organization as possible.
Why?
Because he's Manny Machado. He's selfish, he's arrogant, and he's not worth the headache.
So, like, as a Mets fan,
he's not worth the headache.
So, no, to your point, and look, I'm a fan, yes, but I'm not a fan. I don't know if I'm a fan of paying him $600 million plus. Like, people say, oh, you can get Ohtani money. Like, no, he's not Ohtani, dude. Like, he's not Ohtani. Not even close. Not the impact, but yet I'm worried that the Mets are gonna pony up to pay him that kind of money to get him. And to me, is like,
well, again, this goes kind of back to the discussion about division rivals. Wouldn't this be perfect for New York City? It's now the in-city rivalry, right? Because
it's a great fit,
right? Imagine how Angels fans feel right now. Imagine how Anaheim Angels fans feel right now watching Shohei Ohtani lift a World Series trophy.
Yeah,
how do you think they feel? We had him. He was there. He was ours for 6 years. He was ours. And we pissed it away. And he goes to the Dodgers 25 miles the opposite direction. Now he's got a World Series. So if Soto goes to the Mets and the Yankees fans are like, hey, we had him. We had him locked up. He was good. And then you lose him. The Mets, they clearly become one of the favorites in the National League, but yeah. I don't think they're anywhere, close to us, but whatever.
No, I don't think so either. even with Soto, I think it moves a little bit, but not much.
Yeah.
And for me, I like Soto. Would I want him here? Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, it's not my money. So who gives a fuck, right?
Right.
But isn't it more prudent as a baseball, what I want to call it? Like, isn't it more prudent for the Mets to keep Alonso cheaper? And then use that money you would have paid Soto and fill out the roster for pitching instead.
Yeah,
isn't that the more prudent?
It is.
Process?
It is, and it is, especially when you've got other players who are going to be coming out. I mean, look, Pete Alonso. He struggled obviously a little bit this season, but he's still the face of that organization. There's no question.
He's the heart and soul of that bullpen.
That lineup,
the locker room, yeah. So, there's value in that.
There is, but unfortunately, we put more value into who's going to sell. We put more value into who's going to sell tickets, and we put more value into who's going to put butts in seats and who's going to sell jerseys. And I get that. I mean, that's a business. I understand that, and that's what the Yankees and Dodgers do very well. It's why they're the teams they are. It's why they have the success that they do. But at the same time, you're not rewarding your team by putting a guy in there in Juan Soto, who, let's be honest, I mean, you heard him. You heard him right after the World Series, hat turned backwards, standing there saying, well, I don't know how many teams are going to be bidding for me, but let the bidding begin. Like, he's got no loyalty to anything, which that's fine. If you want your loyalty to be to you, it should be. But if you think for a second that that's going to change because he signs a 6-year deal with the Mets or he signs a 6-year deal with XYZ team, he's running out of places to go. He wore out his welcome in Washington. He wore out his welcome in San Diego. He probably wore out his welcome with people in the front office of the Yankee organization. There's not a lot of organizations left that can afford him and B, want to deal with him. It's the same thing with Manny Machado. Remember when Machado, he was an issue in Baltimore, then he came to Los Angeles and he was an issue there. Now he's in San Diego, and San Diego's got no choice because San Diego, they're this close, right? They were this close to being that team. They were the best team the Dodgers played all year long. They were that close to being in the World Series. And so they're stuck with him. They're stuck with him and the steroid-taking Fernando Tatis. I haven't forgotten that.
You hate the Padres.
And by the way, I will not dispute with anybody the irony you mentioned about, the marketability factor. I will not dispute with anybody that there was a great sense of strange timing as it related to Shohei Ohtani and his interpreter with the whole gambling thing. I don't want to know. Okay? I don't want to know. I'm never going to claim to know if Shohei Ohtani was betting on sports or not. But man, where there's smoke, there's fire. As someone who has gambled on sports for many, many years, I know how easy it is to let someone into your inner circle. And let them abscond with money because you don't want to get your hands dirty, making it look like you were betting on baseball.
Fair point.
I will not dispute that for a second. And if you want to tell me that Major League Baseball brushed this under the rug because they knew they were going to make gobs of cash on the Shohei Ohtani, Fernando Mania Part 2 type, fan base that he was going to attract in the Dodger uniform, I won't argue with you. I will not. I don't think and isn't it ironic also that Major League Baseball still has not done a single thing to really honor Pete Rose since he died nearly 2 months ago?
Is it me? Is that disgusting to me? I'm sorry.
Like, they did nothing. They did zero for him.
I know. They mentioned it and that was it. Done. Mention it.
I mean, they went out of their way to mention Fernando Valenzuela, who deserved it, for the World Series, which he deserved it. Cy Young winner, most valuable player, rookie of the year, all that stuff, Dodger World Series champions, blah, blah, blah. But they didn't mention Pete Rose because here's why. Imagine the hypocrisy of a televised ceremony for Pete Rose. Hey, Pete Rose, we're going to remember Pete Rose and the great career he had, even though there was that whole gambling thing. We'll be right back after this commercial timeout. And the first commercial you're going to see is for DraftKings. And the next commercial you're going to see is for Caesars. And the next commercial you're going to see is for BetMGM. The sport that used to absolutely hold itself so far away from gambling, and now 3 out of every 5 commercials you see are for an online casino or for some wagering platform.
Yep.
It's the hypocrisy. It's the hypocrisy of Major League Baseball. That's why they weren't going to do anything for him on TV, because they know they can't avoid the look of being hypocrites.
But here we are in 2024, right?
Here we are. And Pete Rose, who should now be allowed in the Hall of Fame without question. He's dead. You want to put him in the Hall of Fame, but it makes Major League Baseball, it makes the Hall of Fame look bad if they put him in now, because that makes it look like you deliberately kept him out because he was alive. Well, let's be honest. That's why we kept him out. You kept him out because he was alive. You didn't want him benefiting from it. You didn't want him profiting from it. That's why you kept him out.
Does he get it posthumously, you think?
Yes, he should. If I was a voter, I'd vote for him tomorrow. If I was a voter, I'd vote for him today.
I understand the argument of not wanting him in because of what he did. Obviously affected the game as a manager in the gambling game. You can't do that, and I get all that. But been 30 years, man. Get over it now. Honestly.
Well, it's not only been 30 years, but you can't use the gambling argument anymore while you're taking money from Caesar's Palace.
Exactly.
You can't use
and it missed opportunity too. Also, because like, okay, you can say, okay, you can gotten through all that, gotten more goodwill by getting him in before he passed away. Also acknowledging that, yeah, we're now taking money from gambling and sites like that. And by the way, we're going to let Pete Rose in the Hall of Fame. That'd been a lot of goodwill for baseball in general.
Sure.
But
once you get past the awkwardness of, we should have probably let him in 10 years ago.
They'll get over that. Once he's in, they'll get over that.
They'll get over that, yeah. But, I mean, it's the whole idea that while the whole Shohei Ohtani thing was going on, well, we're not even going to investigate it. What do you mean you're not going to investigate it? Clearly, there's a sign here. I'm a gambler. I know what those signs are. Millions of dollars do not just randomly disappear from someone's bank account. It doesn't happen. Now, am I grateful that they found nothing, quote unquote? Yes, I'm especially grateful that they, quote, found nothing, end quote. And they blamed the interpreter, who we're never going to hear from him ever again. I'm eternally grateful for that, because without that, without them finding nothing, there is no Dodgers World Series.
Possibly, yeah. Possibly.
There's no 50-50. There's no 50-50 year. He's going to get suspended. He's going to spend a year out of baseball, and the Dodgers are knee deep into a contract that they can't get out of.
Is that sole story done now? Officially,
as far as Major League Baseball is concerned, it's done now.
If as it came for when the season started, it went away pretty quick too.
It did go away pretty quickly. The minute he started hitting home runs, no one talked about it anymore.
Yeah.
Good Lord. We're 30 years after Pete Rose, and we have Netflix documentaries on Pete Rose now.
Yeah. So speaking of 2024, we just had an election. Last time
I missed out. No.
Yeah. Last time we spoke last year, we were knee deep into the Republican primary.
Oh God.
Now, it seems like ages ago, right? Good Lord. Oh. We're gonna have Trump back. You had said that Trump was toast last year in September because of all the court cases, and what a difference 14 months makes.
Wouldn't that have seemed logical at the time? Like, hey, I think when we're gonna look back on this, as I've looked back on it a couple of times, Kamala Harris was the beneficiary of Joe Biden's, whatever you want to call it, ineptitude, his lack of this, his lack of that. She never won a primary. She wasn't qualified. She didn't win a primary. She made a bad choice of the VP. She should have gone with Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania, because then she would have carried Pennsylvania. She would have carried the other states. Shapiro was a more dynamic speaker. He had a better story. I think he would have been a better choice at VP. But the fact remained, she didn't win a primary. She didn't win a single vote. And you can't put someone in that position 103 days out and expect them to run a campaign this way, where now she's running for the highest office in the land. I don't think it's a woman can't be president thing. I don't think that's the case. I think you just put her in an unwinnable situation where she didn't win a primary. No one outside of the Democratic fanatic space knew who she was. They didn't know anything about her.
I disagree with one thing you said there. Like, I agree with everything but one thing you said. Like, her not being qualified. I think she was qualified to do the job because, I mean, again, when you're a senator, an AG, and all that, obviously we've seen people get that job for doing less than she's done in her career. Yeah. Now, whether or not we agree that we like her policies is a whole different argument. But in terms of being qualified, hell, people like myself hate Hillary Clinton. She was the most overqualified candidate in the history of politics. She did virtually every single fucking job imaginable before, running for president in 2016. That being said, though, everything else you said there is spot on. Everything said there is spot on.
And, as far as her not being, I'll re-argue the lack of being qualified for the job, where as much as Hillary Clinton was probably overqualified for the job, we've seen other vice presidents who were equally as unqualified. I seem to remember Mike Pence. No one knew who the hell he was. I seem to remember Dan Quayle. I seem to remember guys like that who were equally as unqualified. And tell me right now, would Dan Quayle have won the presidency? No. No one in their right fucking mind would have voted for Dan Quayle as the president of the United States because he was a moron. He couldn't spell the word potato.
Potato.
So I mean, it's just I think the problem the Democrats have is they don't have a shit talker. They don't know how to do it right. They don't know how to shit talk properly. Trump does. Trump and his people, the Trumpsters, the MAGA people, whatever you want to call them, they know how to shit talk. And unfortunately, we live in a society now where we're not interested in intellectual, argumentative debate anymore. We're interested in lock her up. We're interested in, I'm going to call someone a bitch. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to get my mug shot.
Or fuck your feelings.
Yeah, fuck your feelings. We're interested in style over substance. And the Democrats don't have anyone like that. Yes, is Congress a shit show when Lauren Boebert is playing grab ass at a Beetlejuice production, and when Marjorie Taylor Greene, who looks like a hangover on a Friday morning, or the ugly girl you wake up next to after a bad night of drinking, that's what Congress has become right now. And the fact that Matt Gaetz couldn't even have his own appointment to Attorney General last more than 5 minutes before a bunch of teenage girls decided to come out and say, oh, by the way, that's what we're interested in now. We're not interested in substance. We're interested in style. And unfortunately,
here's the question, Steve.
Trump fits that bill.
But here's the question, Steve. Is that a Trump era thing where once Trump, because look, he's going to be president next 4 years, okay? He'll be gone in 4 years. After that, do we return back to the norm, or is this going to be what politics will be moving forward? That's the question.
My biggest worry is not 4 years from now. My biggest worry is July 4th, 2026. It's the 250th it'll be the 250th birthday of America.
Okay.
That's my worry. My worry is that in the next year and a half, something is going to happen. Something bad is going to happen that's going to really show Americans where they are. I don't know what that is, but something is going to divide this country in a way that
even more.
Yes.
You have any ideas that could be the case? I mean, not to put a finger on it exactly, but an idea.
You can't have a discussion about Israel being the one state in the Middle East, right? You can't say, if you're a Republican, you can't say, hey, we're behind you, Israel. We're behind you, Israel. And then in this country, you've got people marching around streets with Nazi flags hating Jews.
Yeah.
Because you can't have one without the other, right? Israel's not going to become a Palestinian state. They're a Jewish state.
Yeah.
You're either on the Jewish side or you're not. And unfortunately, there's going to be a reckoning at some point here about whose side are we on? Because, all the crazy MAGA types and all the crazies out there carrying around flags. What was it? Columbus, Ohio, 2 weeks ago, a week ago, a bunch of guys roaming up and down the streets. You can't say you're pro-Israel and then have that. That doesn't work the same way, So there's going to be a reckoning there. I don't think we're done anywhere near close with the immigration thing. I don't think we're anywhere even close to having a resolution on how this border thing's going to go.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're really close on, I don't know, 5th grade math and 5th grade economics when you realize that what a tariff really is not what the Republicans are telling you a tariff really is.
The way I see it, this is the will of the people. I didn't vote for Donald Trump. This is the will of the people. He will be my president next 4 years. I respect that. And we'll move forward and see what happens there.
But will he?
Will he what?
Will he be president all 4 years?
You think he
might? Let's be honest. We took out Joe Biden. 3 years in. If you come up with the idea that Donald Trump can't do the job, hey, because he's losing his mind. Okay, well, here comes J.D. Vance. Here comes that guy who might be worse or better. We don't know, but certainly Trump chose him for a reason.
Trump chose him by the advice of his son and Elon Musk.
Okay, so what does that tell you? If at some point in time Trump decides, or his people decide, hey, he's gone cuckoo, he can't do the job anymore. Yeah. Well, we can just do what we did with Joe Biden. We can do what the Democrats did with Joe Biden, just push him out the door. And by the way, not to turn it back to sports, if Joe Biden was so inept, and if Joe Biden was so absolutely out of his cotton picking mind, and he was so god awful at what he was doing, then can someone please explain to me how ESPN keeps Lee Corso on the air?
Now, for the record, I haven't watched College Game Day like consistently in years because I work on Saturday mornings, so right. I'm not engaged. And quite frankly, I haven't watched any studio shows really in inside the NBA in years. Just because
they're awful. I'll save you the trouble. They're all awful.
Yeah. I mean, I just lost interest in them, to be honest with you. I watch podcasts, so my immediate intake has changed through the years, and of course, last 15 years. So, but yeah, he's old. He's like 85, right?
He's 90.
What?
He's 89.
Jesus.
He's 89 years old.
I didn't know that. I did not know he was that old.
Yes, he's 89 years old.
And I'm giving him credit. 85.
They literally have to remind him why he's putting on the Buckeye hat when he does the game day shows at Ohio State. They literally have to drag him out there, like Kirk Herbstreit drags him up to the stage, like he had to drag his dead dog out there a few weeks ago. Whatever. So it's just ridiculous. It's time for Lee Corso to go to sleep and go away for a little while. They did this years ago also with Lou Holtz, who ironically sounds a lot like me right now with my messed up teeth. He sounds Lou Holtz. Lou Holtz and I have that in common, except for the Southern accent. But you got to put Lee Corso away. But to get back to the Joe Biden thing, like if he's that inept, and we were saying how, I remember during the campaign, they were saying how Trump would trail off and Trump would, go on these weird diatribes or whatever. Okay, so let's instill that. Let's put that out there that Trump can't handle the job anymore, and we have to put him to bed. Okay, so we're gonna go 25th Amendment on him, just like we did with Kamala. Well, we didn't even go 25th Amendment. Kamala just took over the campaign. We didn't throw Joe Biden out of office.
Nancy Pelosi is a freaking animal.
Right. So we didn't go there, but now, okay, we're going to go 25th Amendment. Trump can't handle the job anymore. So here's J.D. Vance. Have fun with that for the next whatever, how many months.
There's definitely deterioration in Donald Trump. There's no question about that. I've been watching a lot in the last year. Look, I'm not a Trump guy at all, but I see the appeal. I understand the appeal.
I do too. I get it.
Watching him in 2016 in the Republican primaries. He was a star. Like that dude, you saw the appeal there. And you watch him now, just on delivery, there's definitely deterioration. Massive deterioration.
Yeah. So I don't know that he's president in 4 years. I don't know that. Now, what happens to what has to happen is that there's got to be a meeting of some kind at the Democratic headquarters. Someone has to come up with a better game plan of how to speak to people, because you're either going to be a shit talker or you're going to have a civilized conversation, but you can't do both, because Kamala tried that, right? She tried being the civilized conversationalist, but then she winds up on Oprah and she winds up on The View and she winds up on Howard Stern. You can't do both. You have to be either.
I think people say, well, Kamala was too woke, and I disagree with that, because Kamala Harris ran the most as centrist you can get centrist campaign I think I've ever seen, to a detriment. Like, she didn't talk about wokeness, she didn't talk about trans, she didn't talk about any of that stuff. All that shit is bullcrap. She did not talk about any of that stuff on this campaign whatsoever. In fact, she was probably a little, even for my taste, a little too corporate and too much towards the donors, and only going on certain shows and only doing certain interviews and whatnot, which I think honestly hurt her. I don't think her not going on Joe Rogan is why she lost the race, but I do think her going on Joe Rogan would have helped a little bit. It's some perception.
And as far as the whole woke thing is concerned, I'm so fucking sick and tired of hearing people talk about woke. Read a book. Read a fucking book. That doesn't make you woke. It makes you intelligent. And I'm sorry that we have this aversion to intelligence. I'm sorry that being smart, I'm sorry that being around smart people intimidates you, but go fuck yourself then.
But the word's been co-opted, though. The word's been co-opted.
It has been. It has been by the same people who are telling you that being woke is bad. That's what it's being co-opted by. It's being co-opted by people who tell you that it's bad. Read a book. That's all. Pick up a magazine, pick up a book, read something besides your playbook on whatever it is you're reading. Be challenged by something that doesn't make you woke. It makes you want to be better. That's all.
And that doesn't mean you have to agree with it either. It's just opening your mind to what's going on.
Right.
Part of the reason why I love doing this podcast is because I love having people from different backgrounds, different persuasions, different political affiliations, because I want to learn. Even if I disagree with you, what makes you tick? What exactly is it that makes you have this position on this one issue or multiple issues? It's healthy. It's very healthy to learn that.
It's supposed to be what we wanted to be, what we were supposed to be. We were supposed to have great debate. We were supposed to have great intellectual debate with great people who came together with different ideas and different ideologies and different presentations and different mindset, a different approach to things. And we turned that into, I don't agree with you, you must be trans.
Yep.
How do you go from there to there? How do you go there?
Because they want to. Because
I remember during the Colin Kaepernick thing, right? Remember?
Right.
The Colin Kaepernick thing, it didn't bother you. There was one side of the argument that, well, he shouldn't do that because it's un-American. There was the other side of the argument, well, he's very American. I was the guy, you remember this when you did my show back in the day.
Absolutely.
I was the guy who said, how about this? How about don't do the anthem at all? That way.
We both said that. We both said that they should follow the college football
Follow the college football rule.
Yeah.
Don't do the anthem at all. That way nobody gets to do anything. Kaepernick doesn't get to protest. You don't get to have to deal with it. And you don't have to pretend you're boycotting the league when you clearly weren't boycotting anything. You don't have to do any of those things. And by the way, isn't it ironic that no one batted an eyelash when Nick Bosa came on television with a Make America Great Again hat during a post-game interview on Fox? And he's wearing his Make America Great Again hat. No one batted an eyelash at that.
And for the record, it didn't bother me whatsoever.
It didn't bother me. Because you know what I've learned? I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what Nick Bosa thinks about politics. I don't. He could have gone up there with it didn't bother me when Taylor Swift showed up at Kansas City Chiefs games. And then everyone was well, Taylor Swift, she's just a liberal. She's a fan of Travis Kelce, and she's banging Travis Kelce. Who gives a damn about her politics?
Exactly. And she wants to be a liberal, so let her be.
I don't care. I don't care if she wants to swing off of treetops. I could care less what she wants. I'm not a fan of her fucking music anyway.
A couple songs here and there, but I'm not a fan.
Right. A song or two, whatever. Move on with my day.
Yeah. Although I will say, I've been making a case that she's probably the fourth phenomenon we've had. The fourth one
in music.
Yeah, like massive phenomenons we've seen in music history.
Madonna.
Well, we had three. We've had the Beatles, Michael Jackson, Elvis.
Okay, I can see that.
Right.
I go with the whole. I love the argument about like the great female voices ever. Yeah. Right. I'm a big fan of celebrating women's music. Right.
Oh, good. Let's have this discussion right now. Oh, I like this one. Let's go ahead.
Okay. Taylor Swift is not even top 5, right? Okay.
Top 5. Probably not even top 20.
Probably not even top 20. You got Aretha Franklin.
Yes.
Diana Ross.
Whitney Houston.
Barbra Streisand.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
I'll throw some names that you may not be so familiar with, or maybe your listeners are. Kate Bush.
I know she is. I know.
Okay. There's a singer who The Florence and the Machine, Florence Welch.
Yeah, big fan for long.
That
my wife
that
loves them.
that
My
voice
wife
is
yeah.
that voice is the voice of God.
She's very good. She's very good.
She's extraordinarily good. There's
Yeah.
a couple of singers that the lead singer of a band you may not be familiar with called Over the Rhine. Her name was Karen Bergquist.
Okay.
Check her out.
I will.
There's a singer who hasn't been around in a while, but she's got a new album coming out named Regina Spektor.
I know she is.
Annie Lennox.
Oh, she's amazing.
Okay. So I'm a big fan of that. So like as far as like the musical phenomenons, yes, I agree. Beatles, Elvis, I get it. You know, Taylor Swift is right there. Madonna's right there. She's one, and she might not even be top 10 as far as singers
who's
are
that?
concerned.
So when I say phenomenon, what I mean with this, it has nothing to do necessarily with talent,
right?
It has to do more so with impact and numbers and data.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So it goes. So sales, that argument, like that argument is more determined by sales and data. Data drives that argument,
right?
You know, when that you think this artist is great artist as a singer or whatever they may be, they do whatever talent they have.
Right.
The data says otherwise.
Right. The data says Michael Jackson is one of the most successful artists in the history of music. Period.
Right. So does the Beatles, and so does Elvis. So and that's what it is. Like I don't have to like Taylor Swift, but the data tells me that her impact is saying something else. And whether you like it or not, people are buying her records, people going to concerts, and she's doing it in large swaths now.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to believe in the idea that she might be the fourth phenomenon.
She very well could be. And God bless her. She's taken advantage of a market that loves her. She does the right things. She doesn't get involved in the messes. She stays out of the bad headlines. Whoever her marketing people are fucking geniuses.
Doing a phenomenal job with her.
They're doing an amazing job with her.
Yeah.
You know, so God bless her. I wish her all the success in the world. I don't have to like her music to know what she's meant to the industry. It's
like with me, like I can't stand John Legend's music, but I understand how but I do recognize how talented he is.
See, I'm the same way with it not nearly as phenomenal a singer or not nearly as phenomenal as an artist, but like I never understood Van Morrison.
Really? Interesting.
Never. That guy has no lick of talent whatsoever. But every time Moondance comes on, I'm supposed to just drop to my knees like it's the greatest thing ever invented. And I'm like, this sucks. This absolutely just sucks. I can't stand this guy.
Yeah, I get it. But that's where I'm at on that. But like female vocalists, I like if you talk about pure vocalists, my wife and I have this argument all the time because her and I are big music heads, and she's a vocalist to herself, and we always say Streisand's in that conversation, Whitney's in the conversation, obviously Aretha in the conversation. There's a lot of other artists that her and I talk about also, and she's mentioned Florence Machine before too, also in the past as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a handful of them. You know, there's only a handful of women that I will even entertain that conversation with, and you know, I mean, and it's unfortunate that. You know, it's unfortunate that Taylor may not be in that same category, but where she is she's a massive phenomenon. Everything she does, everything her marketing team, management does, turns to gold. And God bless her. Yeah. And that doesn't mean I'm woke because I like what she's been able to accomplish. Exactly. I recognize talent when I see it, and she's got talent. Period.
Imagine having an opinion and say, "Oh, you woke because you have an opinion on something." That's like, okay, you're not even a fan of hers,
right? I'm not even a fan. I just said that. I don't give a shit.
Exactly. Now, speaking of like, we talk about media a lot when you have these conversations. What is your beef with Pat McAfee?
So, I did. Before I took on my most recent position where now I'm a sports writer here in Northwest New Mexico. I used to do a radio show for your listening audience that may not know this. I hosted a radio show on what used to be something respectable called Fox Sports Radio, which is no longer a respectable organization because it's just turned into a clown show. But before
what are they now? They've morphed another company now. Or what?
No, it's still Fox Sports Radio, but it's just a clown show now. That's all.
Okay.
With the exception of Dan Patrick in the mornings and maybe like one other show, but otherwise it's a bunch of guys sitting around yelling at each other.
Yeah.
But sports radio has become a sewer, unfortunately. And I don't say that because I'm not in the business. It was becoming a sewer even when I was in the business. I was trying to be the voice above the sewer, though.
Mm-hmm.
When I when I briefly pass along on the Pat McAfee show, and I'm at the gym, and I'll catch a couple of minutes of it when he's talking to someone, or I'll hear the clip you sent me of the Aaron Rodgers interview. Is it just me? I don't understand. I don't know I don't know why he does it. I don't know what the reason is for it. Is there a reason that Pat McAfee has to be standing up all the time, like he's standing in front of a urinal? Is there a reason?
Yeah.
Why Pat McAfee can't just sit down like a normal person? Because literally, every time I watch him, I fully expect him to just start flicking his nipples while he's standing there under his muscle shirt, or I fully expect him to just start, flicking tassels off his nipples like a girl at a strip club or something. Like, I fully expect him, or to start sniffing his underarms or whatever. Like, I don't know what he's doing. I don't understand why he does that, and it bothers me, not just as someone who has an occasional interest in an opinion on sports. It just bothers me from a podcast perspective, because I don't know who I'm supposed to be watching. Am I supposed to be watching the person you're interviewing, or am I supposed to be watching Pat McAfee with that goofy, when he gets that goofy look on his face, like, oh, I just heard something controversial and I have to react to it, because he just comes across as an idiot every time I watch him.
Well, you're right, and you'll be correct on that, because what's happening is that you're seeing the evolution of media in general. He's bringing that barbershop bro talk, barstool type of, he's not quite barstool, because barstool, I can't stand Barstool Sports for the record.
No, they're a shit show.
They're shit show, but he's bringing that type of radio now to the mainstream. It was huge, obviously huge on the digital waves for years on YouTube. And now it's on ESPN now, and he's bringing something different, like what we were raised on. And look, I fight this too, also, Steve, because someone myself who was raised on classic sports radio with you name it, Hank Goldberg, and all those guys I was raised with. It's changed. The internet has created an avenue for people to be original in that way. You don't have to like it, obviously, but he's kind of an original in that way, where like he stands up and talks instead of sitting down. He's not dressed in nines or dressed even like conservatively in a sense. He's dressed with a tank top. You know what I'm saying? It's different. Right. I get it, and it's not for everybody. I get it. The podcasting has changed. A lot in the last. I mean, just in the last 5 years alone. How we. I remember years ago when I started going to your show 10 years ago. And we were still doing standard radio back then, and now even that's changed now. Like is this? Yeah. We're seeing the evolution now of the digital space across sports media, political media. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just everything has changed.
I remember you mentioned Hank Goldberg, and I grew up listening to old sports talk radio. And there was a guy back in the 80s, you should look him up sometime. He did a half-hour show in Los Angeles by the name of Jim Healy. And it was just him by himself for a half an hour. And he had old clips that he would play while he was introducing and talking about stories.
Yeah.
Do you remember Jim Rome and how controversial he was?
Yeah.
I would give my left nut to get Jim Rome back on regular radio again.
He's still on radio. Well, he's on X.
I know he is. He's on CBS Sports Radio, which has more listeners than you and I do right now. Barely.
Yeah. Yeah, they're barely relevant now.
They're barely relevant. And I remember not liking Jim Rome. I remember not liking him because he gave too much time to his callers, and he gave too much time to being smack talk and all that crap. I would long for Jim Rome right now. I long for those days when Jim Rome would have interesting interviews, and he would challenge his guests, and he would challenge his callers. I long for that. I long for the political side. I long for Rush Limbaugh, because he actually did challenge people. He actually did want to have an intellectual conversation with you. But now it's Clay Travis, who's an asshole of such epic proportion. Now it's Stephen A. Smith, who just yells all the time. Now it's Pat McAfee, who is a buffoon in every imaginable way. Like, the only thing that makes him relevant is the fact that he appears on, what is it, WWE Raw or SmackDown? Like, he's
actually a commentator, and he's really good at it, to be honest with you, brother.
That's fine. But that doesn't make you a legitimate sports talk host. It never used to. It used to be that you could define the line between being a wrestling personality. Can you imagine any day shape? Can you imagine any time and day where Bobby the Brain Heenan would have been on ESPN radio?
Oh my God. Oh, he'd been great though. Be honest with you.
Think about it. Can you imagine any scenario under which Gorilla Monsoon would have been a sports talk show host?
No, certainly not.
But now we're okay with it. Now we're totally okay with it.
The thing is, though, it doesn't bother me though, because like in a sense, because like here's the thing. On one hand, I'm with you. Like I missed, because I'm very nostalgic. Obviously, you and I discuss it a lot on the show and in text. How we're nostalgic about the past, TV, media, doesn't matter. But that's still out there. We still have those radio shows out there. There's just more choices now. And unfortunately, unfortunately, depending on how we stand on the argument, there's more people who are gravitating towards the modern day now, way of intaking media. Instead of the classic radio we were raised on, now they're taking more on the short form or easy listening, bro show, what do you want to call it, podcasting thing. Which again, I don't have a problem with it at all. But I think we're struggling with the fact that because our ages too, especially too. And it's me unique, especially too, because I was coming out of that era of the old classic radio and merging into what we have today.
Right.
It's a lot to digest. It is a lot to digest. I get I feel for you, brother, on the argument, because you being also a guy that not only listened to classic radio, you did that for years.
Right. I can, and I think that, and you're absolutely right. And I appreciate you not just being so obvious and saying, hey, Bortstein, you're just an old fart. Because that's what it is. I am. I'm an old fart. I miss what used to be respectable sports talk radio. It used to be a respectable thing. It used to be a respectable profession. And I miss that. Because it's not there anymore, or if it is there,
it's still there. It's not prominent.
It is now, but it's not. It's not on AM 570. It's not on FM 930. It's on platforms like yours. It's on podcasts. It's the occasional talk show. Jordan Buscarini, who you and I have been working with for many years. It's guys like him who I still shake my head every time he tells me, how much I've meant for his career. Like, I didn't do anything except just be me. That's all I ever did.
Yeah.
I just tried to be a storyteller. I tried to listen to people and engage in a conversation and invite that conversation. That's all I ever did. But now it's not that anymore. It's now too much of how loud can I outshout you? And it's not just sports, it's news, it's any sort of media type. It's everything. Every time I turn on the TV and I watch some, 8-panel, thing where CNN's going to have this or Fox is going to have that. They got 9 people on the screen and everyone's just trying to outshout the other. And it doesn't do me any good because I can't understand one person talking over the other.
Mm-hmm. I, even doing this medium, podcast medium for 13 years, it only wasn't until recently that I feel like I found my voice finally. Like going through, because as we're going through the years, like debate television and this and that, and radio's changing and TV's changing and stuff. Where do I fit? What should I be doing, and what makes me comfortable? Ultimately, it wasn't until recently that I felt like, okay, what I'm doing now is what I should be doing. I don't mind debate television. I prefer conversational stuff. I'll sit down.
I'll tune into some of your stuff. Sometimes I tune in when you're doing like the NFL stuff, and I'll occasionally like post a really quick like 4-word comment on something I'm watching on when I'm watching on Facebook.
Yeah, of course.
Because I don't want to interrupt, and I want you guys to do your thing when you're doing your NFL shows, or you're talking about what team's doing this or what team's doing that. And I like it because you do give that other person. And the other person gives that other person, and the other person gives that other person all appropriate times to talk.
Yeah.
And that's what radio is supposed to be.
Yeah, right. You're right. And like I said, I struggle with that too also, because like I try to do a lot, like on this podcast. I try to do as much as I could, everything I want to do. Like I want to do sometimes a little like radio classic kind of stuff, and also want to do conversational conversations like this one, for example. You know what I mean? So like there's something for everyone now. I think in today's era, because I think the market's so big now where there's still room for the stuff that you used to do. on radio. There's still room for that, I think, still, because it's everything's open now. There's no more gatekeeping.
I just think that from a marketing standpoint and from
that's a challenge.
An advertiser standpoint and from a revenue standpoint, it's more entertaining and therefore more marketable to have three people yelling at each other than it is to have three people actually having civil discourse.
I agree with you. I mean, people say McAfee's bad for media. Some people say he's great for media. It depends on everybody's perception.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sometimes McAfee guy. Like I don't mind McAfee, but he's definitely not my daily intake.
Yeah.
I
prefer the much more calm and civilized discussion of what used to be Rich Eisen, and now
he's still great. He's still great. Rich Eisen.
Yeah, Dan Patrick in the morning. I have no problem with him. None. Zero. I love his show.
Likewise. And they've actually adjusted. They've actually adjusted. They're still doing radio, but I think they've adjusted it now. Because now they realize that TV is a big thing now. Yeah. So they put their stuff on clips. Also, you do a 3-hour show. You take on the best topics.
It's not even it's not the apparatus, right? It's not television or radio or computer. It's the message that I struggle with. It's the delivery. It's not correct. It's not whether or not, it's just the delivery of you as a personality. And to go back to what you said a minute ago, you do you. Don't change because an advertiser says, well, this works better. Fuck you. I work better. Yeah. I've been doing this for 13 years. I know what works. I know how my show operates. I know how my guests operate. I could not. If someone told me, okay, Bortstein, we're gonna put you back on radio, but you have to do your show like Pat McAfee, I'd be like, no, I'm not. I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm gonna stay where I am.
But I don't know why?
Do his show.
And you know why? Because that's also not authentic to you.
Right.
That's why. And why would you do that? You have to do
what's authentic to you. That's why I probably I as much as it bothers me from time to time, and my wife says it's still like the greatest breakup I ever had, but it's why I ultimately miss radio more than anything, and will never, unless it's under my terms, I would never get back into radio unless it was.
I keep saying this. Do the podcast.
I know,
but you can. I mean. I know you're so good at this though. Like even you were doing the shorts for a little while on your speaker page a couple years back. Those are great. It keeps you going. I don't know, man. I feel like you should do it.
I miss it. I miss it every day. And it's funny how it's been nearly 5 years. It'll be 5 years in January since the layoffs happened. Since the iHeart layoffs happened. It was before COVID, it was before we'd even heard the word COVID. It'll be 5 years in January. And I still, to this day, there's still the station that I worked for still runs a promo of mine.
Still
to this day.
Wow.
There's a 15-second promo for contests. Like, hey, the word of the day or whatever. There's a promo that runs once every 4 hours, and it says, for information on this and other contests, log on to foxsports1340.com. And it's still my voice. And every time I hear it, I just cringe, and I'm like, fuck.
I actually listened to my appearances on the show about a month ago. I saved a lot of them on my file. I used to save all of my appearances I did on my hard drive, and I went through my hard drive recently, and I went through it again. I was like, God, I miss these days, man. This is so much fun. So much fun.
It was good times. All right. I want to talk movies because I have 3 movies I want to recommend to you.
Okay, so you send me a text and you said that you're like, I asked you about, because we always do this whole like, okay, what are you watching? And you said no TV shows.
It's really movies. I've been lacking on the TV thing, and I know I need to get into. I don't know why. I don't really know. I think it's just I'm a married man now, so we go to movies. We watch movies now. Me and the kids.
I will say this, though. I will say this, Steve, and just finish real quick. I have started doing the whole like Tuesday marathon, $5 movies. When my kids were at school, my wife's at work. I'll go to the movies at 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
by myself, and watch a movie.
That's what me and my wife do. We drop the kids off at school, so we do the movie thing at 11 o'clock.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So that's become like our thing now.
Yeah, I try to do
the kids are at school. Fuck it, let's go to a $5 movie. Okay, so I know I'm in the minority on this one.
Okay.
One of my favorite movies of all time, saying that, of all time, was the most recent Joker movie.
So the reviews I read were
god awful.
What?
God awful. The
reviews
were god awful because people are stupid. That's why. And here's why: because people don't understand what a musical actually is. Because we've been so inundated now with shitty remakes of Transformer movies, and we've done every CGI movie you can think of. And if Marvel comes out with another goddamn comic strip hero that I've never heard of before, I can't stand these movies. The Joker was brilliant. It was brilliantly shot. It was brilliantly edited. Lady Gaga and Joaquin Phoenix were the most amazing actors in anything. It beats the shit out of Wicked. It absolutely destroys Wicked. As far as
tell my wife that though. My wife will go nuts because she loved Wicked. Loved it.
It was good. It was very good. It's not Joker. Joker was better by far.
I enjoyed the first Joker for the record. The first Joker was amazing for the record. I loved it.
Which one?
The first Joker was great.
The first Joker was great. This one, I would argue, was even better because it forces you into the idea that the Joker is not really that bad a guy. He's not. He's just a little messed up. He's not that bad a guy. He's just really disturbed. And I loved it. I loved everything about it. My wife was stunned. When we came out of the movie, she's like, so what'd you think? And I'm like, I think it's one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life.
And you have high standards for the record. So if you say that, that's pretty decent because you have very high standards when it comes to movies and anything.
I do, and I absolutely loved it. Okay, there's that one.
Okay.
There's the Substance.
What is that about?
Okay, Demi Moore.
Ooh.
Demi Moore plays an aging Hollywood film star who is coming to terms with the fact that now she's older and her character isn't, her character that she played in movies. She's not that actress anymore. She's old now. So she finds this supplement, if you will, to make her younger. And I'm not gonna tease it. I don't want to spoil it. You got to see it. But essentially, she becomes a younger version of herself, and then it goes haywire. And it becomes a bit of a gore fest at the end. It's a little bit too gory for me, or maybe a little bit, but it's fucking amazing.
Is it in theaters now?
It's not in theaters. It's on Amazon.
Okay.
It's on Amazon, and it's extremely well worth it. It was a brilliant movie, and I would highly recommend it to anybody. It was outstandingly good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
The
Substance. Find it. It's not. There's only a couple of actors really in it. It's not a huge cast. But it's the way it's done. It's shot brilliantly. It's edited brilliantly, and the story is relatable as like how we want to look, at a certain age, and we don't look that way at a certain age anymore, and how we deal with it. And it takes a very weird turn, and it's just amazingly well done. So those are my two.
I'll check it out. So no TV shows at all? Nothing.
I started watching The Penguin, but I haven't finished it.
My wife started that. She likes it a lot, actually.
Okay.
Here's my problem.
I tried House of the Dragon. I did. I tried House of the Dragon, the spinoff to Game of Thrones.
I did too.
And
can't get into it.
No, it's not. I because I think I'm still pissed off at how Game of Thrones ended.
You're still mad about that, dude? It's been 5 years.
I am still mad about how it ended. I still haven't. I went back, actually. I did a few months ago. I went back and watched the last season again, just because I thought, okay, maybe I went about it the wrong way. Maybe I looked at it wrong. And I went back and watched it again, and it came to the conclusion at the end of it, no, I didn't look at it wrong. This sucked. This was a terrible way for it to end. It was god awful, and I defy you to tell me otherwise. So no.
Oh my God.
So then I turned on House of the Dragon thinking, okay, I'll give this a shot. I was 2 episodes in, and I was reminded of just how absolutely pissed off I was at Game of Thrones, and I said, fuck you, I'm done. Yeah,
I watched the first 2 episodes when it came out, season 1, and it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. I just wasn't into it. I was not in the mindset to watch it.
Yeah, I had no interest in it whatsoever, and I was like, okay, I'm done here. I can move on with my life. And what else? I watched. I started. I haven't gotten through it, obviously. I'm 2 seasons into Yellowstone.
Never started that show yet, but I need to start it. I heard it's really good.
The first season's great. The second season tails off a little bit. I've been told the third season picks up a little bit better. But yeah, Yellowstone, I can see where people are into it. I can. I did finally finish, after many years of procrastinating on it, I did finally finish The Walking Dead.
Oh,
and can I just say that was every episode of that is just another chunk of an hour of time that I am never going to get back.
I watched the first 2 seasons and I stopped, and I just never really got back onto it.
It's not changing. There's still dead people. That's all I care. I don't know. They're all dead, and everyone's gonna die, and we all should just move on with our lives. Another movie that was okay, but I wouldn't recommend it, was the latest M. Night, whatever you want to say his last name.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah. Trap.
Oh, I saw that one. That's what I saw in theaters on my $5 movie day.
Yeah, it was worth the $5. It was barely worth the $5.
You didn't like it?
Yeah. I was expecting something big at the end. I was expecting some big shock ending. There wasn't. I was pissed off because there wasn't.
I did for the popcorn. For the popcorn.
I mean, it was all right. It was okay. It was all right. I'm looking forward to Gladiator 2.
That's pretty good, actually.
I'm a huge Denzel Washington fan. Always have been.
Me too.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. The Wicked thing, it bothers me only because now I found out at the end of it, and maybe I should have looked into it beforehand. Now I find out that the second act of the musical, which I saw on Broadway, is part 2 of the movie, which is going to come out in a year. So I already saw the second act. I saw it on Broadway. I don't need to wait a year for it to come out on the big screen. I will say the Ariana Grande and the other lady whose name I can't pronounce, whatever, they were amazing.
Yeah, I heard. My wife cried. She said she cried watching it.
Yeah, so. They were outstanding. They were absolutely amazing, and they pay homage to the original Glinda and Afelfa. They pay homage to them by having Kristen Chenoweth and Adina Mendez, I think her name is. They had those in the movie.
Adina Menzel.
That's it, Mendel. That's it. They had both of them in the movie, which was great. That was nice to do. And then like Jeff Goldblum as the wizard. Like, why him? Of all, like, you could have picked anybody. And instead you went with Jeff Goldblum, who, I'm sorry, I still see him as the guy who tries to sell me a house on TV commercials. Like, he doesn't bother me at all. Like, I need a bad guy.
I think of Jurassic Park when I see him. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think of Jurassic Park. I think of him turning into a fly and trying to eat Gina Davis, whatever. I think of that. So it's tough for me to get into the whole Jeff Goldblum thing.
I'm about to make you very proud of me right now.
All right.
You know I finally finished after all these years?
What's that?
Do you know what I finally finished after all these years?
Newsroom.
No.
Sopranos.
There we go. Finally finished.
What do you think?
I love it.
What do you think of the ending? What do you think of the ending?
It doesn't bother me.
Thank you.
It doesn't bother me.
That's how it should have ended. It should have ended exactly that way. You make up how it goes.
Yeah. What do you? How do you? Do you think he got killed?
I think he gets killed.
I
think the guy that walks through the door is going to be the guy who kills his entire family.
Oh, you think Carmela dies too? Also,
I think they all die right in that restaurant.
David Chase did say though in an interview that yes, he did die.
Yeah,
And
I
that was
think
the
the
original
whole.
ending.
I think the whole family. I think they're all there, and I
But
think they all died.
But I think he had said in the same interview that he said that Carmelo survives and the kid survives as well.
Okay,
too.
that's fine. But he dies. I think in that instant when it went to black screen, he dies.
It didn't bother me. I look, and the thing is too. Also, I don't know if I feel differently if I watch it in real time. Like I can see why people are upset about it. If I watch it in real time and see the ending, I can understand why I'm upset about it. But the fact that I already knew the ending was the ending beforehand anyway.
Right, you knew what you were getting into. Yeah,
So that took away the stigma a little bit and a little bit of the expectations, we'll call it. But I watched it. I'm like, okay, I'm not. It's not me mad about it. I was like, okay, it's creative.
Yeah, you weren't like I was in the last half hour of the last episode of Game of Thrones. I sat there that last half hour of Game of Thrones, that last episode. I sat there with my arms crossed, just in an angry state of mind. The last 20, 25 minutes of the show, and I'm like, I've been cheated. The last 6 years of my life has been a lie. I was furious. But as soon as the Sopranos ended, and when I went to the black screen, I sat there, I thought about it for a split second, and I'm like, okay, I'm good.
You mean in real time when you watched it?
Yeah, in real time. Right when it happened, I was okay.
It's
you remember when I don't know if you ever had these when you grew up. You ever had those you choose your own adventure books?
No.
You've heard of them?
No, have not.
They're little paperback books that as kids you would, you're in a forest.
Oh, wait, choose your adventure. Yeah. Choose your adventure, you mean? Yes.
Choose your own adventure books.
Yes. Sorry about that.
That's what it was. Choose your own adventure. You decide what happens to Tony Soprano. Turn to page 25 if you think he dies. Turn to page 36 if you think he lives. That's what it was.
Do you think that show aged well?
Oh God, yeah. We've actually watched it. Naomi and my wife and I watched a few episodes, and she's like, I will still occasionally tune in and watch a few episodes, and yeah, it's aged just fine.
I feel like it doesn't. I feel like it ages well in the sense that it's just the nostalgia factor, but I feel like if you release it, you can't do that same show today in the same format because of a lot of the pushback. It'll get more pushback today because it's much more
there's
honest.
a lot of shows you couldn't. There's a lot of shows you couldn't release today based on the pushback. Put on a season of All in the Family and see if that's going to get on the air today.
Oh, I love All in the Family, for the record. Love that show, for the record.
Try selling that to a network today.
Yeah. And that's the thing. That's why I don't think it aged well, because I think if you release that show in 2024, it will get a lot more pushback. Probably won't be as popular as a result. And right. I'll have a niche audience opposed to having the wider audience has now.
Well, I think that's why. Thank goodness we've got Netflix, Amazon, Apple to a degree. You've got these other networks that you're not so reliant on a network anymore. You're not so reliant on NBC or Paramount. You're not so reliant on a regular TV network. You've got these other outlets now. It's the thing that Netflix does really well, other than live, fake sporting events like that boxing match a couple weeks ago.
Jake Paul and Tyson, yeah.
That was god awful. I remember sitting there watching it buffer on my screen, and I'm like, that's the most entertaining part of this entire fight was buffering. No.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God, what a disaster!
The undercard fights were okay, but that fight was just god awful.
Mm-hmm.
But I think I think it's okay. I think they're going to do just fine when they have to do. They have a couple of NFL games on Christmas Day that I think.
Well, they have one game. I know that.
And then they're going to have WWE next year, right?
Raw will be on there officially.
Yeah. Good for them. I mean, I think they'll do well with it. I think if you're gonna have a bad, dress rehearsal, do it for that. Do it for the Mike Tyson thing, and then work out the bugs, whatever you need to work out before January rolls.
Speaking of which, are you watching WWE at all?
I know a little bit of what's going on. I know a little bit of the CM Punk thing, which is kind of fascinating to me.
Yeah.
I know a little bit of the Roman Reigns thing. Wasn't Roman Reigns going to die like 5 years ago?
Yep.
Now he's totally fine.
More or less. He's in remission, and he has been for a while. But they also have to monitor him too. Also,
Okay.
Yeah.
So I like that storyline a little bit. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop when Paul Heyman brings in whoever he's going to bring in next, and I think I know who it's going to be. But I don't think anyone wants I think everyone wants to hold on to this one for a little while. But I don't think it's going to be too far along before we see the Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns thing come back, because AEW is a shit show.
Yeah, I stopped. I'm off the wagon AEW. I remember I got in early with it, and I was excited initially, but it's every year since 2021, I've just inch away from it, and I'm
so I think we're closer now to getting a Shield reunion, which would be awesome, because I think they still have a little bit of relevancy left. I like Cody Rhodes. I think he's been really good. Mm-hmm. He's the next generation, if you will, of superstars there. So I'm kind of liking that storyline a little bit. But I don't watch it with the same fervor that I used to.
No, and I think it's hard to do that because with wrestling, there's no off season. There's no
right. I don't have 3 hours. I don't have 3 hours every Monday night. I just don't.
I've learned now. Oh, I know. I know that's something. Me too. I don't watch anymore. Thank God for YouTube. YouTube, because they've done the way that made it to a point now where they've given you like a 20-minute like version of it now on there, which is great. They do a good job of marketing their product, for the record. But I can't do it the way. Look, and especially doing this time of year too. Also, I'm into basketball and football and other content. I can't devote all that time to wrestling. I can't. Cannot.
Yeah, I've got too many things to do with my job and taking care of a family, and I've got a high school football championship game this week, and then I go right into high school basketball the next week. I don't have 3 hours to just sit around on one of my two wife's nights off. It's she gets Monday and Tuesday nights off, so the last thing she's gonna want to do is, hey honey, let's sit down and watch 3 hours of pro wrestling, because she's gonna murder me if I say that to her.
No, but I will say I do watch the big stuff. I do watch the pay-per-views, like this weekend Survivor Series. I'm gonna watch that. You know what I'm saying? So and my kids into it too, also, especially. So it's a bonding for me and my oldest child. We went to Raw in August. My first time at Raw in 25 years for me. So I'm into it, but I'm not like, oh my God, dedicated, and
right.
So that's
I just don't have the time or the patience for it. Like
I don't have the bandwidth.
Yeah,
I don't have the bandwidth. It doesn't have the space.
I know.
So
I get it. I do. I understand.
Yeah. Anyway, Steve, excellent conversation. I think I cleared a palette here. All the things we had on the list to talk about.
Yes. I think I've gotten everything off my chest that I needed to get off my chest.
We went almost 2 hours. We
did. Your listeners are brave to have stuck with me through my lisp and my you did
good. You did good on the list. You did good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Do you want to plug what you're writing right now?
Yeah. If you don't mind, really quick, I'm covering sports for a local newspaper here in Northwest New Mexico. The paper is the Tri-City Record. You can find us on the web at tricityrecordnm.com. That's for New Mexico, tricityrecordnm.com. You can follow me on Facebook at Steve Bortstein, or on my sports page at Sports with Steve Bortstein on Facebook. I try not to go on Twitter anymore, just because it's a sewer, and I don't embrace it.
Elon is running a fucking shit show.
Yeah, there. I don't care. So I would just as soon, if the only way I can get you to follow me is by going on Twitter, then I would just assume you not follow me. That's how I look at it. Like if the measuring stick is, oh, you need to be on Twitter, then don't follow me, because chances are I'm gonna hate you. So I would just assume you not follow me then.
I have considered deactivate my account there a couple times, but I decided not to do it because I do a good job of balancing the bullshit there for the most part.
I use it basically because there are other reporters in the state of New Mexico who are covering games that I can't get to. So I follow those people because I know that I'm going to get updates on games that I can't get to. So that's what I use it for, as purely an informational source. But as far as reacting to, no, God, no, please don't let me react to anything, because I know better. I know that when I step in dog shit, I know what happens, and I just don't step in dog shit then. So
there you go. There you go.
That's it.
But
So
Steve,
follow me on Facebook at Stephen Bortstein, or follow me on Facebook at Sports with Steve Bortstein, or check out the website at TriCityRecordNM.com, and you can read all about what's happening here in high school and college sports here in the Four Corners region, and you can follow along with what's happening in the ever popular sport of horse racing, which is trying its best to kill itself on a regular basis.
Oh, you're still doing that, huh?
Oh yeah.
Oh wow.
I've always been a racing fan.
I know you
are.
Yeah.
Racing, baseball, and boxing. Those are my things.
Yeah.
I've always been.
Yes.
That's why I was so embarrassed by the Mike Tyson thing, because that wasn't a boxing match. That was an old man barely getting beat up by a young guy who never should have been in the ring in the first place. And please, dear God, please, for the love of God, let him take a fight with Canelo Alvarez. And please, for the love of God, let Canelo Alvarez just pummel him.
But there was surprised if they rehash just Jake Paul Mike Tyson fight in wrestling form. I was surprised that comes up. I mean, Logan's already there. Logan's ready in WWE now.
But didn't Logan tell him that he would fucking kill him? Didn't Logan say that in the ring? You're standing right next to Mike Tyson, and you just basically insulted the guy. And how god awful was the announcing on that? The ring and first off, maybe I guess I was vastly unaware. I had no idea that Rosie Perez was some sort of boxing expert.
I had no idea. That's news to me.
I had no idea she was some sort of boxing expert. All I was waiting for was Spike Lee to come out for a Do the Right Thing reunion.
That was great.
I had no idea. And then, like, Evander Holyfield, they tried talking to him in an interview between matches, and he couldn't hear anything. And I thought, wow, really? Mike Tyson still has that damage to his ear. Jesus, that's amazing.
Yep. You're not wrong there.
That was the one that I took away from the entire night. That was all I took away from it. Was just what a shit show.
It was a shit show. The best match was the one before that one, and I missed that one because of buffering issues, obviously.
Yeah, buffering issues. Yeah. So,
fucking
well, thank you so much for allowing me to share a lot of your bandwidth tonight, and thank you to your listeners for tolerating my nonsense.
Absolutely, great job as always, man.
Thank you.